Hello and welcome to the Ignite Your Leadership Prowess podcast. Today, I am with a lovely, phenomenal lady, Veronica Young. Veronica is going to be telling us a major moment in our life that changed the story, that changed who she became, that changed how she looked at things and made her as strong as she is today. She's going to be telling us about a moment when she knew adversity and didn't even know she could manage adversity, but the way she turned things around will give you the moment that you need to think about and ask yourselves, can I make this happen? She did something phenomenal. We're going to be talking about how a woman changed her life through adversity. Welcome to the show, Veronica. I'm really glad to have you here, and I'm pleased to introduce you to our audience. I would like you to do the honors and introduce yourself and tell us who you are, what you do, before we get into the wonderful story you're going to be sharing with us.
Thank you so much, Mutiat, for that wonderful introduction. I am Veronica Young. I am a social awareness copywriter. I support businesses and brand owners with creating impact through ethical messaging and effective marketing. And I am very grateful to be here and be able to share my story with your audience this morning.
Lovely, lovely, beautiful. So we are talking about how to navigate adversity and cultivate integrity in leadership. And I must note that leadership is for everyone. If you cannot lead yourself and lead your life right, how can you lead other people? Which is why I'm so inspired by you, Veronica, how you led yourself and you made that change in your life and stood up and showed up for yourself. Please, can you share with us a significant moment of adversity in your life, in your leadership journey, as you led yourself and led the people around you? How did you navigate through it while upholding your principles?
Absolutely. Leadership actually found me. I did not declare myself a leader at all. And I am still discovering the leader that is within myself. Besides being a business owner and a mother of two young children, I'm also a 14-year cancer survivor, and I am still a patient currently in active treatment. And I have had 3 separate diagnoses, and the final diagnosis, which is metastatic, actually showed up in a disability. I was going to the gym every day and enjoying life. I look very healthy. I feel very good. And I just did not recover from my workout. And the pain became progressively worse over the course of maybe a month. And, as women do, we are just like, oh, it'll be fine. And you just keep pushing through the pain. And eventually, I discovered that the cancer had moved into my bones. And whether or not I would be able to walk again was debatable. And that was a moment for me when I understood how quickly things can change. Despite having 3 other diagnoses, this was the one that I felt humbled me because I never spoke about my disease. My initial diagnosis was a stage 4. It was a stage 0. And I wasn't buying it. I went to the internet. I did all the healthy things. I like to think that I actually kept the disease off for about 10 years until I became a mother, and it came back a little bit more aggressively. But I was in a perpetual state of denial because, hindsight, I did not have the support or the self-confidence to be able to properly get the care that I needed. I was in fear, so I decided to go to the internet to decide how to cure my cancer, and I did not deal with doctors for a very long time. In that journey, there was a lot of ego. And I don't have cancer because I feel good. I don't have cancer because I look good. And a lot of this also came from the outside world of nothing's wrong with you. You eat healthier than me, you're in better shape than me, nothing's wrong with you. So I allowed the outside world to tell me how to care for myself. During the time leading up to me becoming temporarily disabled, I was silent for about 2 years. I did not speak very much at all. The only time that I spoke was to ask my now ex-husband, what would you like to eat? And my children, what they need. And I was silenced because I have had a lot of voices over the course of my life tell me, you're too much, or watch what you say, or not really caring or understanding me at all. So in those moments, little did I know, I was learning how to maybe honor myself, or even recognize that I'm not just a daughter, a wife, a mother, a sister, but I'm indeed a human being. I like to think sometimes that I was given cancer to force me to nurture myself. But as the ego does, when I became disabled, the first thing that I began to think about was my livelihood. And I knew that the work that I did going forward, it could not involve taking care of other people, because I really needed to be taking care of myself. So I began the journey of entrepreneurship alongside the journey of actively seeking treatment and a medical team to help me with my stage 4 disease.
Wow, that is so phenomenal. I can see a lot of resilience there. I can see a lot of bravery there, and I can see a lot of new discoveries there. You getting to know yourself more, getting to understand your priorities, and knowing what you should be doing to put yourself first. That is so impressive. So, what role did you think that, resilience played in that journey whilst you were navigating that very difficult moment?
Resilience gave me a choice. Initially, when I decided to become a business owner, I went into it for legacy. And I began, of course, journaling my feelings while I was going through everything. And I felt like, I have gained the ability to cope. I was not necessarily resilient initially. I was coping, and I figured that I would use my platform as a way to teach other people how to cope. But I was also still very disappointed in my support system. And I was also using my platform as a way to say, hey, I actually need help. I'm actually, not well. And you can't discount helping people just because they don't seem like they need it. Because you've always been the healer in your family or in your group or your circle. And I was very disappointed that I didn't have that same level of nurturing. And instead of me being direct about it, I decided to educate and inform. During this, it actually left me quite vulnerable. And the resilience came after the fact, because when I got that stage 4 diagnosis, I was so focused on making sure that my children knew how I intended to raise them, what I wanted to be instilled in them. And I was using the evergreen ability of the internet and things being permanent there as a way to leave the information in case no one spoke for me once I'm gone. as I continued along my path as a business owner and the internet world, it started to feel a bit more like trauma bonding. And the algorithm would often put me in alignment with healers and other people dealing with mental health challenges. And me being a highly empathetic person, that actually affected me more than I had imagined. Because remember, I went 10 years of denying that something was wrong. So part of that denial, I have adapted in a way where it does not define me. So the denial was very powerful tool because that helps you to keep going, but you have to be able to merge the two and realize that we have to face the hurdles that are in front of us. You can't just be positive about everything. You have to actually deal with the things and be empowered through your choices. So my resilience actually came when I decided to stop focusing on the stage 4 diagnosis and realizing that instead of leaving a legacy, I can take these things that have been afforded to me, like the downtime that a disability can create, the time with myself that most people are never given because they're so busy achieving and doing and serving. So I was able to take all of this time to really figure out what I would like the next chapter of my life to be and live that day by day. And I went back to when I got that stage 4 diagnosis. My immediate mindset as a 23-year-old, I am now 40, was very ignorant, of course, as a 24-year-old, but quality over quantity. So I didn't care how long I lived, as long as it was quality. But now that I am a 40-year-old woman, I understand that the quantity is in every single moment. And the quality is what you make it. The quality of my challenges, my lessons are my blessings. I've learned through business that there's no greater impact that I can create than my personal story, no matter how vulnerable that makes me seem. But the difference between when I was leading with legacy versus now where I'm leading with service, I truly feel like that will give me longevity. There is more purpose than me simply just wanting people to know who I was.
Wow, that is a very powerful one. The time you were living with legacy versus the time you decided to begin to live with service, having purpose, coming forward with the service that you can bear to the world. Wow, that is really, really powerful, And you talked about in that moment when you realized and saw that things were down, it seems like you could use that time, that moment of disability, that moment of vulnerability, that moment that felt like you couldn't do so much. You turned that time into a time to reflect, to see how you can go further, what you can do better, how you can serve yourself better. Perhaps that was when you get the service inclination. So how did it feel when you discovered that you could actually turn that negative moment into something positive? How did it feel? How did you then, brace yourself forward to promote what you thought, what came to you then?
I felt like one of my children. I watched my children and they run their world. There's nothing too big, there's nothing too small. And once I realized, I just felt born again. I felt born again, and I felt supported and the leader of my life, as you say. I no longer felt like a victim of circumstance. And now I see my diagnosis as it's provided me with a medical team that supports me. So I'm in control. I know what's going on. I've been able to prioritize my mental health and show up as a stronger person. And overall, my life experience is much richer. And the irony of my profession, because I needed to know that I could do something that would only depend on my brain and my communication, is even though I've been the person with cancer, I've always been the go-to person for everyone. I've always supported everyone. And there's something that happens as a cancer patient when you can no longer show up for the people in your life that way. It's very unfortunate, but it's called ghosting. You know, it's a hidden disease, so they don't really understand why you can't do what you used to do for them, and it becomes very lonely, unfortunately. And in that, you have to be selfish, and you have to, in order to regain your resilience, you have to find the resources that are out here. There are plenty of people who love people. And sometimes the closest people to you have their own limitations, or it can sometimes hurt for them to see you go through certain things and they feel helpless. So I also learned how to not take things personally. And in that, I realized that I actually missed being that person for people. I love supporting the people who I love. And I am a very empathetic person. However, I have actually seen the effects on my blood work of stress and of overserving and of burnout. So I sat with myself again and I said, you know, how can I use the skill of being extremely empathetic? People always tell me that because, you know, when you're silent, you can hear more. And because I'm just finding my voice and I spent so many years just observing, it actually has given me a skill of being a writer and being able to write for other businesses and help people to captivate what it is that they want to do in the world. And I have seen so many innovative, good, strong, powerful people who don't have a voice. And sometimes they just need someone to give them that language and give them the words. And that has been my strong suit ever since I was a little girl. Because when I was a kid, unfortunately, I was silenced a lot too. So I wrote. And the irony, like you said, how did I feel? I felt like a child again. And it all came full circle. So now I write for businesses, for brand owners. And I can still share the impact of my story, but without feeling like a victim, but without also having to be self-promoting, because I am still figuring it out. And I told one of my colleagues recently, because she also does not see the leader that she is in her life. And I said, you know, the most powerful leaders don't recognize themselves as such. So I love the ability of being able to support companies and individuals and businesses who can stand and shine and be out there like that, while I can prioritize my family, my health, and support people, knowing that you're helping people to get what they actually need. Because when earlier in my journey, when I was always looking outside of myself for solutions, I didn't know how to make decisions. I went everywhere to make a decision. It took me a very long time to make my own decisions. And I see that sometimes in marketing, people tell you, if you don't have this, if you don't have that, then your life won't be great until you get this. And I don't want my children believing in that. I don't want my children growing up in that manipulative world. And as a copywriter, I'm investing my little drop of the bucket into humanity to make sure that people are not manipulated in that way. And that if they do have anxiety or depression or scarcity, that they can make informed decisions to make their lives better, because it is quality, which I believe enhance the quantity of your life.
Wow. I can see that you were really transformed by what you went through. And in life, sometimes we are placed in situations that make us feel a little bit uncomfortable, so that we become more comfortable when we figure out things and when we can make those discoveries that were hidden, in the situations we were placed in. I suppose your situation put you in a situation for deep reflection, self-discovery, huge inclination of who you are, who you want to become, how you want to place yourself, the traces of you right on earth. And I think you've done a very great job of that. I can see clearly. Well done for that. And you carried it all with integrity, right? Shining through you right now as you speak. So, well done for that. It's such an inspiration to hear your story, to see where you're coming from and what has made you become who you are, the force to be reckoned with that you are right now. So, let's think about other people in leadership positions. And you talked about something that some people do not know the leaders, within them. I guess sometimes maybe it's the situations and the things that happen in our life, in our career, that actually help us to open up, what we are really capable of. Because most of the time we hide ourselves and say, no, we'll play small until the big thing really brings us out. So I want you to shed some light on how leaders, organizational leaders, people leading themselves, leading teams, how they can foster a culture of integrity within their teams or their organizations, especially when they're facing adversity or challenging circumstances.
Okay. So I am a firm believer that your income will never exceed your self-identity. So in everything that you do, you have to be central to it. There will always be trends in your industry, and you will always be pulled into different areas, but I say that you have to have a solid foundation on why it is that you wake up every morning and why it is that you show up every day. And more often than not, that has to be cultivated, it has to be built, and it is an ongoing process, especially to younger leaders. I think sometimes it's very hard to trust your instincts and your intuition, because everything can sometimes be so practical. Your organizations and your team, they have their handbooks, you have your processes of how things are supposed to go, but you also have this vessel that you have been given that tells you when things are not in alignment with you. And I believe that you should be able to move around the things that does not serve your purpose. And when I say purpose, I don't mean this grand thing. I mean making sure that you're doing, what you're doing, and you know what you expect to get from it, and keeping your eye on that mission, holding your vision so that you can continue to be empowered in that way, and making sure that you're keeping yourself fed. You have your support system, you find your support system. This is not a solo journey. And to put yourself out there, do the hard things. And something a little practical is physical activity. I believe that you break yourself down and build yourself up before life breaks you, so that you know how to do it on your own. And then I had a wonderful minister tell me, and it stuck with me forever, make sure you make time for pleasure, because pain will schedule itself. So when the leader feels good, everyone around you feels good, and integrity, impact will follow.
Fantastic. Make sure you make time for pleasure before pain begins to schedule itself into your routine. Wow, that is really powerful. That is really powerful. Make sure you make time for pleasure. Wow.
Yes.
How pleasure can help us lead better, be better, feel better, live better. Wow.
Yeah.
That is a very great one there. Okay, so what lessons have you learned from overcoming adversity that have shaped your leadership philosophy or your approach to leading yourself, leading the people around you, and cheering your children, up?
Yes, I have learned from overcoming adversity that the sky's the limit. There is, the worst thing that can happen, unfortunately, is that you will fail to exist. We won't be here anymore. But beyond that, there's nothing that you can't do. And when that is done, you're, who knows? We're not aware. So a lot of the things that we worry ourselves with are not even as real as we think they are. So all we have is the moment, and continue to overcome. And with everything that we overcome, we become more creative. We're better able to serve and help other people. Sometimes it will break you. But the beauty is when you come back and you're like, wow, I never would have thought. So the number one thing that I've learned is that in those moments, I remember this too shall pass. And enjoy it. Enjoy it. Be grateful for every single stage. Gratitude. And showing up. And if there's something that makes you feel uncomfortable, do it anyway. But you don't have to be uncomfortable. You do it, and then you make your tweaks until you're comfortable. It's not an all or nothing, a black or white. Figure out how to make it work for you. You are the main character. This is your universe. Anything that comes here is meant to come into fruition in the world.
Wow. I could listen to you all day. Thank you so much. That is so inspiring and so deep. And, it just gets the better of us out every time when we get into zones that you get into. I mean, the way you're talking and that coming from your experience, when we get into real soul searching zones that really gets us to the core of who we are, I think our power comes out. Like I can see so much power that you are sharing, that you are pouring out onto us. Thank you so much. So from our experiences as individuals and to my leaders, emerging leaders, senior leaders, whether you're leading corporate teams, you're leading, projects, you're leading communities, How can leaders leverage their own experiences of overcoming challenges to inspire and guide other people around them, to guide their teams, to guide the people around them during difficult times?
Okay. So as of now, there is a great need for authenticity and storytelling. And you do have to keep in mind certain parameters within your industry to make sure that you're not in violation of anything. But there can always be done in role playing and case studies. But I feel like businesses and organizations, because of everything that society has gone through collectively together over the past few years, has to be more intentional about a holistic approach for their team to make sure that there is space to talk about the hard things and to give real world examples and to nurture one another. I'm actually working on a workshop called Embracing Resilience that helps organizations do that. So I recommend that any team constantly seek out information to support the people who you are working with. And that should be central, and also the very first process in any project that you're working on, because you have to show up as a whole person to be able to do your best work. It'll all pay out in the end. You'll be able to meet your deadlines. But right now, authenticity and storytelling are very powerful, as well as wonderful podcasts like this, Your Soulful Genius, and just giving people resources. I worked at a desk job for 13 years, and I would have loved if someone would have said, start your day with this podcast. It can be something as simple as that, but making sure that we're not just looking at the bottom line, but we're taking care of the organization as a whole and remembering what our mission is, because that is our firm foundation. The rest will come, but always go back to the mission.
That is really wonderful. Okay, so what is the advice that you have for aspiring leaders who are still unsure or they're still looking? What would happen if I get into a situation that becomes so challenging? What am I supposed to do? What advice would you have for them?
Stop. Get your bearings. Stop, look, and listen. Everything, especially from being a mom, I watch how resilient children are. We were all children. We were all born that way, where we cry, fall out, and then 2 seconds later, there's no problem. So stop. Give yourself place to stop, look, listen. Stop. It is absolutely okay to be challenged. And I know this is not conventional advice. Most people say, push through, do what you got to do. I say stop before life stops you. Stop, look, listen, but don't stay there. And reach a hand out. We live in a world where we can, you're in the UK, I'm in America. How much of a blessing is that? Also, look at the reality. If you are able to even think that you can be in a leadership position, there's a lot of liberties and freedoms that we take for granted every single day. Not everyone has the ability to show up. Let the simplest thing empower you. It doesn't have to be a grand outcome. It's the simplest thing, looking at, all of my advice kind of goes back to you. Get clear, get focused, and realign yourself. But it's okay to take a moment and be challenged. It's okay. And it'll be easier the next time that you're challenged, I promise.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Veronica. You have shared so much inspirational, thought-provoking stuff with us today on this podcast. As I said, I could have you all day long because there is so much genuinity coming from you, authenticity, and not just that, knowledge from your lived experience, giving us so much that we can take from you to navigate adversity, to begin to see ourselves differently, see circumstances differently, make the most of whatever situation we find ourselves, because that is what you've done to make you who you are today. I'm really grateful having you on this show today. So this is where we are going to be ending this program today. I wish I could have you more, but time is not really our friend. But I know that what you have shared today is transformational and is going to change a lot of people's lives. It's going to help people see their situation differently, than they use, because you've inspired me. I know you'll be inspiring so many people. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure talking to you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you so much. That's it on the podcast today. Until I see you again, be the best of who you can be.